When your children don't respect you and ignore you, stay calm and do this for effective results. Why your child ignores you and how to change it. Do you ever call out to your child only to be met with silence? Do you share advice, stories, or concerns only to feel like they don't hear you, or worse, that they don't care? Maybe you've noticed a growing distance, a lack of respect, or an unsettling coldness in your interactions. One-word responses, eye rolls, dismissive tones. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, and if we're being honest, it hurts. You've sacrificed, supported, and guided them through life. Yet now it seems like your words don't carry the same weight they once did. Instead of connection, there's resistance. Instead of warmth, there's conflict. And the worst part? You don't know how to fix it. But here's the truth. This isn't just about their behavior. It's about the cycle you're unknowingly trapped in. Meaning you've reacted in anger, raised your voice, or tried to assert control, only to watch the problem get worse. Maybe you've backed off, hoping they'd come around, only to feel even more invisible. The emotional drain is exhausting, and the constant conflict is taking its toll, not just on you but on them too. So, how do you break the pattern? How do you regain their respect without resorting to harsh punishments or desperate pleas? How do you re-establish a bond that seems to be slipping away? The good news is, there's a way. In this video, we'll uncover 6 powerful and practical steps that will not only help you navigate these challenging moments, but will transform the way your child sees and responds to you. You'll learn how to maintain your authority while strengthening your connection, so that your voice is not just heard, but valued. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Mindful Sphere. Here, we focus on mindful parenting, emotional intelligence, and personal growth, because a peaceful, respectful family dynamic isn't just possible, it's within your reach. Let's dive in. Step 1. Control your reactions. A man who conquers himself is greater than one who conquers 1,000 men in battle. Buddha, in ancient China, during the Warring States period, there lived a general named Sun Li. He was known for his tactical genius, but even more so for his unshakable calm in the face of chaos. One day, his troops faced an ambush. The young warriors panicked, some even dropped their weapons. But Sun Li, he simply raised his hand, steady, unwavering. He did not shout, did not curse, did not let fear dictate his actions. Instead, he breathed deeply, assessed the situation, and gave orders in a calm, deliberate tone. His troops, seeing his control, steadied themselves and fought back with discipline, ultimately turning the tide of battle after their victory. A soldier asked him, "General, were you not afraid?" Sun Li smiled and said, "Fear is natural. But a man who lets fear control him is already defeated before the battle begins." Parenting, much like war, is not about overpowering the other. It is about mastering oneself. Your child's defiance, their eye rolls, their dismissive tone, these are battles that can either be won through force or through wisdom. And wisdom begins with stillness. I've seen a lot in my lifetime, more than I'd like to remember. Wars, economic crashes, times when a loaf of bread felt like gold, and times when people took abundance for granted. But nothing has tested me quite like raising my son, David, now. David wasn't a bad boy. No, he was sharp, too sharp. Always challenging, always questioning. As a teenager, he would say things that cut deep, things that made me feel like I had failed him. I remember one evening, after dinner, he slammed his plate down and said, "You don't get it, Dad. Your world is dead. Everything you believe in, it doesn't work anymore." I looked at him, this boy I had raised, and my hands clenched. The urge to lash out, to remind him of everything I had sacrificed, boiled up in me. I wanted to say, "You ungrateful little," but then I remembered something my father had told me when I was young. The man who yells first has already lost the argument. So I closed my eyes, breathed in, and let the anger settle like dust after a storm. David was waiting, expecting me to explode. When I didn't, he shifted, suddenly unsure of himself. "Aren't you going to say something?" he snapped. I nodded slowly and said, "Son, do you think yelling at me will make me understand you better?" He looked down. I continued, "If you want to be heard, then speak to me, not at me. If you think my world is dead, then teach me about yours." That night we talked, really talked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw him not just as my child but as a young man searching for his place in the world. Years later, when he had children of his own, he told me, "Dad, that night taught me more about strength than any fight ever could." And you know what? He was right. Today, I look around at the world, at parents losing patience, at children building walls, at people screaming over each other, thinking volume equals victory, and I shake my head. No one wins that way. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who controls their fire, who chooses stillness over rage, who understands that silence can be more powerful than any argument. So next time your child disrespects you, next time the anger rises in your chest, ask yourself, do I want to win the battle, or do I want to win my child's heart? Because those are not the same thing. Have you ever lost your temper with your child and regretted it later? Or have you ever stayed calm when you wanted to explode and seen a better outcome? Let's talk about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. After all, wisdom isn't meant to be kept, it's meant to be shared. Step 2. Understand, don't just punish. When dealing with people, remember, you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotion. Dale Carnegie. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Socrates, known for his patience and relentless pursuit of truth through questioning. One day, a young man approached him in a rage, having been publicly insulted by a friend. Socrates listened without interruption. When the young man finished venting, Socrates simply asked, "Why do you think he insulted you?" The young man, taken aback, paused. "Because he is cruel and jealous," Socrates nodded. "Or perhaps he is afraid. Perhaps he feels unseen, unheard. Perhaps his words are not about you at all, but about his own wounds." The young man remained silent, deep in thought. Socrates then said, "Before you strike back, before you judge, ask yourself, what does this person truly need?" This principle applies not just to enemies, but to our own children. A disrespectful child is rarely an evil one. More often they are overwhelmed, insecure, or struggling with emotions they do not yet understand. And if we punish before we understand, we do not correct the behavior, we merely deepen the wound. I remember the first time my grandson Jake slammed the door in my face. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't the wind. He looked right at me, his face hard as stone, then bam, the door closed between us. Now, I was raised in a different time. In my day, slamming a door at an elder wasn't just rude, it was unthinkable. My father would have had me marching to my room with a red ear before I even knew what I'd done wrong. For a brief moment, I felt that old instinct rise in me, to storm in there, to lay down the law, to demand respect. But then, something stopped me. I took a breath. I thought of my late wife Mary, who always had a way of seeing what lay beneath people's anger. "People shout when they don't know how to ask for help," she used to say. So instead of barging in, I knocked, softly, no answer. I waited a moment, then knocked again. "Jake," I said, calm as I could manage. "I don't know what's wrong, but I'd like to understand." Silence. I almost walked away. Maybe the old way was better. Maybe a punishment would teach him. But just as I turned, I heard it, a sniffle. I opened the door, and there he was, sitting on the edge of his bed, fists clenched, blinking back tears. Not angry, hurt. I sat beside him, not saying a word. Eventually he spoke. "Mom and Dad are getting divorced." The words hit like a hammer. He hadn't wanted to slam the door on me. He had wanted to shut out the world. He was drowning, and I almost punished him for struggling. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "I'm sorry, son. That night we talked. Really talked. Not about rules, not about respect, but about pain, about change, about how sometimes life throws things at you that you don't know how to handle. If I had reacted in anger, I would have missed that moment. I would have been right, but I would have lost the chance to truly reach him." Years later, Jake told me that was the night he realized he could always come to me. That night shaped the trust we still have today. I wonder how many parents are out there mistaking a child's outburst for defiance when it is really a cry for help. How many are so quick to punish that they forget to listen? You see, when a child is disrespectful, the easy thing to do is to punish. The right thing to do is to ask why. Have you ever reacted too quickly, only to later realize there was more to the story? Or have you ever taken the time to listen first and seen a different outcome? Let's talk. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else see things a little differently today. Step 3. Set clear boundaries. He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him. Proverbs 13:24. In the ancient Roman Empire there was a philosopher named Seneca who often wrote about self-discipline and personal boundaries. One of his students, a wealthy young man, struggled with excess, spending lavishly, ignoring responsibilities, and indulging in every desire. One day Seneca asked him, what would happen to a city with no walls? The student shrugged, it would be open to attack. And a life with no rules? Seneca pressed. The young man hesitated. Seneca continued, freedom without discipline is destruction. A horse without reins, a river without banks, these things do not run free, they run wild. It is limits, not the lack of them, that create true freedom. Children, like that young Roman, do not always understand the importance of boundaries. But rules are not cages, they are guiding walls that provide safety, security, and direction. Without them, children feel lost, uncertain, and overwhelmed by their own impulses. A parent who enforces fair boundaries teaches a child responsibility, self-control, and the balance between discipline and freedom. I used to know a boy named Joe. Joe was 10 years old when his father bought a little house on the edge of a wide open field. There was no fence, just endless space stretching into the horizon. Joe's father told him, "You can play anywhere in the yard, but don't go past that hill." Now Joe was a smart boy, but like most kids, he was curious. Why not past the hill? What was over there? He asked his father, but all he got was a firm, "Because I said so." That answer only made him want to go more. One day, when his father wasn't looking, Joe ran past the hill. He ran further than he ever had, heart pounding, laughing at the thrill of breaking the rule. But then he stopped. There, just beyond the hill, was a steep drop, a sharp, jagged ravine. One more step, and he wouldn't have been running home. He wouldn't have been running anywhere, ever again. His father found him minutes later, frozen at the edge. He didn't yell, didn't punish, he just placed a hand on Joe's shoulder and said, "Now you understand." The next week, Joe's father built a fence, not to trap him, not to control him, but to keep him safe. And this time, Joe didn't question it. Many years later, when Joe had a son of his own, he told him, "A good father doesn't build fences to lock his child in, he builds them so his child knows where it's safe to run." I've seen too many parents afraid to set rules. Afraid their kids will hate them, afraid to say no because they want to be liked instead of respected. But let me tell you something, a child without boundaries is not free, they are lost. Will test you, they will push, they will roll their eyes when you tell them no. But deep down they are looking for the fence. They want to know where it's safe to go and where danger lies. And it is your job not to be their best friend, not to let them figure it all out on their own, but to build that fence before they step too close to the edge. Have you ever had to set a boundary that your child didn't understand at first? How did it turn out? Let's talk. Share your experiences in the comments, because wisdom isn't just learned, it's shared. Step 4. Lead by example. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. In ancient India, a mother once brought her young son to Mahatma Gandhi. She was worried about his health and pleaded, "Please tell my son to stop eating sugar. He won't listen to me." Gandhi looked at the boy and simply said, "Come back in 2 weeks." Confused but trusting, the mother obeyed. 2 weeks later she returned with her son. This time, Gandhi looked at the boy and said firmly, "Stop eating sugar." The mother was puzzled. "Why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago?" Gandhi smiled. "Because 2 weeks ago, I was still eating sugar myself." This story teaches a simple truth, people, especially children, do not learn from words alone. They watch, they imitate. If you want your child to be kind, be kind. If you want them to listen, show them what listening looks like. The greatest lesson a parent can teach is the one they live. I once knew a man named Mr. Thompson. He was a father, a husband, and the kind of man everyone in town respected. But what I remember most about him wasn't what he said, it was what he did. He had a son, Charlie, a wild spirit, always testing the limits, always questioning authority. One day, when Charlie was about 16, he got into trouble, serious trouble. He had been caught stealing from a store. Now, in a town like ours, word traveled fast. By the time Mr. Thompson got home, half the town knew. That evening, Charlie sat at the dinner table, waiting for his father's explosion. He had seen how other fathers in town handled things like this, with shouting, punishment, even a heavy hand. But Mr. Thompson? He was quiet. He ate his dinner like always, slow and thoughtful. Finally, after what felt like forever, he looked at Charlie and said, "Come with me." They walked in silence until they reached an old, run-down house on the other side of town. Mr. Thompson knocked, and when the door opened, there stood Mr. Davis, the shopkeeper Charlie had stolen from. Charlie's stomach dropped. Mr. Thompson said only one thing, "Tell him what you did." Charlie stammered, avoided eye contact, and finally admitted it. Mr. Davis listened, then nodded. And then Mr. Thompson reached into his own pocket, pulled out some money and handed it to the shopkeeper. For what he took, Charlie's face burned with shame. He expected a lecture, maybe even a beating, but instead his father had done something worse. He had taken responsibility for his mistake, without anger, without pride. At night, as they walked home, Charlie finally broke. "Why did you pay for me?" His father stopped, looked him straight in the eye and said, "Because a man's actions are his true words, and from now on, you will learn that what you do matters more than what you say." Charlie never stole again. You see, people think discipline is about rules, but it's really about reflection. A child does not remember the punishment as much as they remember the example. They do not learn integrity from lectures, they learn it from watching. And if you demand respect but give none, if you teach kindness but live in anger, then don't be surprised when your words fall on deaf ears. I look around today and I see too many people shouting, demanding change, demanding respect, demanding decency. But words alone have never shaped a generation, actions do. So ask yourself, what are you teaching your children, not by what you say, but by how you live? Have you ever learned a lesson, not from words, but from someone's actions? Or have you ever seen your own behavior reflected back at you through your child? Let's talk. Share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes, the best lessons are the ones we don't even realize we're teaching. Step 5. Strengthen the bond outside of conflict. Do not confine your children to your own learning, for they were born in another time. Hebrew proverb. In the ancient Persian Empire, King Cyrus the Great was known for his wisdom in leadership, not just in war but in relationships. One day an advisor asked him, "How do you earn the loyalty of your soldiers?" Cyrus smiled and replied, "I do not demand it, I share their burdens, I eat beside them, I listen to their struggles, I laugh with them by the fire, and so when I ask them to follow me into battle, they do not do so out of fear, but out of love." This lesson applies to parenting as well. Many parents expect respect and obedience without investing in the relationship. But just as a leader must walk among his people, a parent must walk beside their child, not only as an authority figure, but as a companion in life's journey. If a child feels valued outside of discipline, they will be far more willing to listen when correction is needed. Love is not shown through words alone. It is proven in shared moments, in time given freely, and in the willingness to listen without judgment. I'll tell you a story about a boy named Ben and a wooden boat. When Ben was 10, his grandfather, Walter, told him they were going to build a boat together. Not a toy, not something from the store, but a real wooden boat, one they would shape with their own hands. Now, Ben was like any other boy, full of energy, restless, impatient. The idea of spending hours sanding wood and hammering nails didn't excite him. He would have rather been inside playing video games. But Grandpa Walter had a way about him. He didn't lecture Ben about patience or responsibility, he simply started. Each day after school, Grandpa Walter would be out in the yard, working on the boat. Some days Ben joined him, other days he didn't. But his grandfather never scolded him for skipping, he simply continued, humming an old tune, sanding the wood smooth. Then one evening, after a particularly tough day at school, Ben walked outside and picked up a hammer. He didn't say much, just started working beside his grandfather. That became their rhythm. No forced conversations, no lectures, just quiet companionship, the smell of fresh wood, the sound of nails being driven in, the occasional joke that made them both laugh. Months passed, and the boat took shape. And somewhere in that process, something else happened. Ben started talking, not just about the boat, but about everything, his worries, his dreams, the time a girl at school embarrassed him, the fight he had with his best friend. And Grandpa Walter? He listened. He didn't judge. He didn't interrupt. He didn't turn those moments into life lessons. He just listened. When the boat was finally finished, they took it out on the lake. As they sat in the boat they had built together, Ben looked at his grandfather and said, "This is the best thing I've ever done." Grandpa Walter smiled. "Me too." You see, the boat was never really about the boat. It was about the time spent together, about the connection built between a boy and his grandfather. Years later, when Ben became a father, he found himself sitting with his own son, carving wood, talking about life. Because love, real love, is passed down, not through lectures, not through punishments, but through shared time and quiet understanding. Today, I look around and I see families who don't talk, parents who demand respect but don't build relationships, children who turn to screens for comfort instead of the warmth of their family. And I wonder, how many parents are so focused on correcting their child's behavior that they forget to strengthen the bond that makes discipline unnecessary? A child who feels loved, valued, and understood naturally wants to listen. A child who feels unheard, unseen will rebel, not out of malice but out of loneliness. So I ask you, when was the last time you built a boat with your child? Not an actual boat, but something meaningful, something you did together just because. When was the last time you sat beside them, not to teach, not to correct, but simply to be? Because respect isn't just something you demand, it's something you earn. Have you ever had a moment when a simple shared experience strengthened your bond with someone? Maybe with your child, a parent, or even a friend? Let's talk. Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the best conversations start with a story. Step 6. Give them space to reflect. Do not try to force everything to grow fast. If you pull on a sprout to make it taller, you will only uproot it. Lao Tzu. In ancient Japan, a samurai once approached a Zen master, seeking wisdom. "Master," he asked, "how can I make my mind as still as the moon's reflection on water?" The master poured tea into the samurai's cup, but did not stop. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the floor. "Master, the cup is full," the samurai exclaimed. The Zen master smiled. "Like this cup, your mind is too full. You seek wisdom, but you do not allow space for understanding. You must first let things settle before true clarity appears." This lesson applies not just to warriors but to parents. Too often, we want immediate answers, instant remorse, immediate change. But reflection, true growth, requires space. A child, like that overflowing cup, cannot process emotions under pressure. Sometimes the best lesson is learned after the moment has passed, when they are given time to let understanding take root. I remember when my grandson Tommy broke my watch. Not just any watch. The watch. The one my father gave me. The one that had been in our family for generations. I had left it on the kitchen table as I always did. Tommy, only 12 at the time, was playing too rough. I heard the crash before I saw the damage. The moment he realized what he had done, his face went pale. He looked at me, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the punishment, the scolding, the fury, and I won't lie, oh, I felt it. My first instinct was to say something sharp, something that would make him feel the weight of his mistake. But then I stopped myself. Instead, I picked up the broken watch and said, "Go to your room." No shouting, no lecture, just silence. Tommy didn't argue, he didn't even look at me, he just turned and left. And that was the hardest part. Because in that silence he had to sit with what he had done. No defense, no justifications, just reflection. Later that evening he came back. His voice was small when he spoke. "Grandpa, I'm sorry. I wasn't careful." Now here's the thing. If I had demanded an apology right away, he would have given it, but it wouldn't have meant anything. It would have been forced, spoken out of fear or obligation, but because he had time to feel, to process, to reflect, his words were real. I sighed and nodded. "I know, son." Then I handed him the watch, the broken pieces still in my palm. "Come, let's see if we can fix it." And so we sat, side by side, piecing it together. Some things could be repaired, some things couldn't. But the lesson stuck. Tommy never played rough in the house again. Not because I scolded him, but because he had felt the weight of his mistake, because I had given him space to understand, not just with his mind, but with his heart. You see, too many parents rush to make their child say the right thing, to show obedience in the moment. But words spoken too soon are just that, words. True accountability comes not from force, but from the stillness of reflection. Today I see a world obsessed with instant reactions, social media arguments, knee-jerk punishments, quick apologies that mean nothing. But wisdom isn't found in urgency, it's found in silence, in thought, in the quiet space where real change begins. So, the next time your child makes a mistake, ask yourself, do they need correction or do they need time? Have you ever realized something important only after the moment had passed, or have you seen a child learn better when given space to reflect? Let's talk. Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the best lessons are learned in silence. Parenting is not about control, it's about guidance. And guidance isn't always immediate. True learning doesn't happen in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet that follows. Think about the lessons that have shaped you the most. Were they the ones forced upon you? Or were they the ones you came to understand on your own? Children are no different. They need time to process, to reflect, to grow. And as parents, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is wait. Not every mistake requires a lecture. Not every conflict needs an immediate resolution. When we give children the space to think, we give them the chance to develop accountability, wisdom, and emotional maturity, skills that will serve them far beyond childhood. So the next time you find yourself demanding an instant apology and immediate change, pause. Give them a moment. Give them room to understand. Because when they reach their own conclusion, the lesson will last a lifetime. If this message resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Have you ever seen the power of patience in action? Let's share our stories, because sometimes wisdom is found in the spaces between words.